How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the OneIQ Football Talk podcast. Brendan and Sterling here with you on a Wednesday, getting in some early predictions for this upcoming week. Normally, we do all of our predictions on Saturday before the Sunday slate of games, and then we typically do a Thursday night game, just kind of as a little bit of preview. But as we have a Thursday night game, and we also have three Saturday games up on the schedule this week. So we're gonna add this little podcast in between in the middle of the week just to give you a little bit more content. But first off, Sterling, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing all right. I'm ready for the holiday work season to be over. It's been pretty crazy, but yeah, the NFL schedule when they go into Christmas mode, it's always freaking weird, and so we thought, maybe we should do a midweek, just a little quick recording for you guys, get something out there. That way, we're not rushed on Saturday morning to try and get that Colt or that Vikings game prediction out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which would be no fun.
No, no, because then we'd both be tired, and my team plays that day too. So I'm like, I want to sleep in so I can have good energy for my game to watch my team probably lose.
You don't want to start immediately, wake up, have to
Right,
start thinking about your team, which is going to cause you to start drinking, and then by the time you get to your game, you're already halfway down the can, and
right. And I love how we've totally like flipped our positions from the start of the year, where I was super optimistic every week, and now I'm like, yeah, we're gonna lose. And you're like, hey, we got a shot at the playoffs.
Oh, okay, I'm not gonna go that far. I'm not
Okay,
fucking.
fine. Every other Bears fan is going that far.
Yeah, there are a few Bears fans that sit back and go like, "Oh, we can do this." I'm like, "All right, guys, slow your roll.
Right?
We beat the Vikings, who don't have their quarterback. They didn't have their star wide receiver. We
Mm-hmm.
beat the Lions, like, which is like, granted, we gave the Lions two really good games. Like
Yeah, yeah,
we
those
took
were
it
two
to
really good
them.
games. Yeah, that's the
And
thing with divisional play, man, is even when you're the worst team in the division, so you still have that spark when you're playing those divisional games.
yeah,
Yeah.
but pretty much for the Bears, the only way they could possibly make playoffs is if they win out, which I'm not saying they can't do, but
Hmm.
it's going to be one of those things where it's like you got to go through Cleveland this week.
Yep.
It's like that's going to be a test because they have that number 1 defense,
Yep.
and Joe Flacco did something and looked good. You're just kind of sitting
Right.
back going like you're not supposed to do that, sir. Like,
No, not after being retired and, being the backup in New York for a bit and like,
and just
I don't
genuinely
get it.
sucking. Like we're
Right?
we're all sitting back going like Joe Flacco, you're not supposed to play elite. You are
No.
not elite Joe Flacco.
Right?
Stop
If
it.
if I knew he was going to be this good, I would have said, why doesn't Pittsburgh bring him in at the start of the year? Like, frick, he's one touchdown away from tying Kenny Pickett's touchdowns for this year,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
ridiculous. He's only played 2 games.
which is just bonkers. But then you have to
Yeah.
go up against the Cardinals and the Falcons, which theoretically should be winnable games, but it's also one of those things where I'm looking at it going like they'll fuck it up. They'll screw this up somehow.
Yeah, but I mean, we're in this weird time right now. Like, I'm sure you watch Red Zone sometimes too, and like that twilight, that witching hour that they call it. I
Yeah.
feel like that's the point of the season where we're in because we're even seeing like just some bizarre finishes to games where teams you don't think are going to do anything pull it out. Look at Monday night this past week.
Yeah,
We had the
Titans beating the
Dolphins
Vikings.
against the Titans where you and I both thought no chance the Titans have. And Will Levis turns it on and makes the Miami Dolphins look like the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl and erases a 27-13 lead in 3 minutes and wins that game. Just insane,
Absolutely nutty. It just
right?
and yeah, to finish off the season for the Bears, they got to go up to Lambeau Field to take on the Packers, which we saw them lose to the Giants, and so
Right?
that's always going to make me happy. But it honestly kind of feels that if the Bears do get these next 3 wins, that is going to be the game to decide who's going to be that seventh seed in the
Yeah.
NFC. And if the Bears somehow make the playoffs and they do sneak in, I'm gonna sit back and I'm just gonna throw my hands up and be like, I don't care what happens. They could get
Yeah.
blown out. I'll just sit back and go, okay. I guess my prediction of 9-8 at the beginning of the year, which I recommend you going back and watching because we both made predictions on our team,
Hmm.
was somehow right? After the way the season started?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's just it. Like you guys got to win out, but you need a lot of teams to lose specific games here and there,
Yeah.
multiple games in some cases. So it is. It's a rough road, and I don't think yous will make it. But I mean, my team's sitting in a playoff spot right now, and I don't think we're gonna make it.
Yeah.
So
It's uh,
we're at
again,
that
it's
bizarre
been that
time.
weird shift that you
We've
exactly
had,
said is like you don't think your
yeah,
team's gonna win a single game for the rest of the year, and I'm sitting back going like, we could win out,
right, right.
we could finish the
And I
game.
mean, you mentioned them earlier too. Like the Packers lost on Monday night to maybe the Giants have found their dog in Tommy DeVito. It's I was talking with a buddy at work and I said, it's almost like that Brock Purdy situation. Like I'm not comparing him to Brock Purdy, don't get me wrong. He's not as good, but like it's where these quarterbacks come in that you never expected to see. They were third string or lower on a depth chart and they come in there and they go, "You know what? This is my one shot. I've
Hmm.
got a ball out." And so you see them taking these risks that if a
A
regular
starting
quarterback was
quarterback just
taking,
doesn't
you'd be
do.
going, "This is insane. Why are you doing this?"
Yeah.
But when it works, the guy looks fantastic as a result. But that being said, he does look better than Daniel Jones, in my opinion. So it's
Yep.
like now the Giants are in a spot where they've got to find a way to get Daniel Jones off the books because you've got Tommy DeVito, who is arguably better, and then whatever you manage to add to your team in this offseason in the draft, hopefully the Giants can be competitive again. I doubt it, but you never know.
Yeah, and I guess we're doing like a mini rant street at the start before we get into our picks, but I saw a thing this week where it said, Bears fans, would you be interested in this trade for the number one overall pick? And it was the Giants send, which at the time they had the fifth pick. I believe they have the sixth pick or seventh pick at the moment. But
Mhm.
regardless, you do a swap for the first, for sixth or seventh, whatever it is currently right now. You get their first round pick in next year's draft, and you get Kayvon Thibodeau. And I'm sitting back going like, oh, like that would be that like I'm not like I would want more for that number one overall pick because obviously you're gonna be giving up Caleb Williams,
Mhm.
but I'm looking at going like, okay, you're giving us a first round pick and you're also giving us an edge rusher who's on the second year of his rookie deal and he's really turned it on, and you can place him on the opposite side of Montez Sweat, who has shown that he is that guy. And
Mhm.
Thibodeau definitely doesn't have that guy on the opposite side, and you're sitting back going like, "Oh, I'm thinking happy trouser thoughts."
Well, also allows the Bears to not need to spend one of those first round picks this year on an edge rusher to play opposite Montez Sweat. The only
Exactly.
downside is depending where the Bears finish and then that sixth overall pick, will Marvin Harrison Jr. fall far enough for you guys to still scoop him? Because I know he's a key piece that a lot of Bears fans are wanting.
Yeah, and that is one of the things where I'm sitting back and I'm looking at all the mocks, and I truly believe that polls really wants Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not saying that he has come out and stated that or he's given
Mhm.
any indications of that. The season's still going on, so he's not even thinking draft here at the moment. But for the Bears, I think, and you and I have discussed it, the best course of action this offseason was to be to trade that first overall pick, move back either a spot or two, get Marvin
Mhm.
Harrison Jr. with that first pick, and then basically just take the best player available with that next pick, and likely be Latu, the edge rusher out of UCLA. But yeah, it's a weird time for me as a Bears fan and a talent evaluator for when it comes to actually like, looking at these college prospects, because you're sitting back going like, what can we do? Because at the same point you're also looking at Justin Fields and evaluating him, and you're looking
Mhm.
at Caleb Williams and you go, ooh, I have 4 more years of rookie money and the potential. But it's like that old Family Guy skit where it's like you could have a boat or you could have whatever's inside this box. It's like, well,
Mhm.
we'll take the boat. No, 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 hold on, Lois. There could be anything in this box. It could even be a boat. And that's what it kind of feels like with Justin Fields and Caleb Williams. It's like we could have a franchise quarterback, or we could have the box with Caleb Williams, and it might be a franchise quarterback.
Yeah,
And I'm
but it
not
might
saying
be a bust.
exactly. I'm not saying that Justin Fields is a franchise quarterback right now, but he's looking more and more like it each and every week.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, the best week that he's ever played. But I think we've stalled enough. I think the biggest reason that we have stalled the most for these picks is because these 4 games that we're going to talk about, the Thursday night game, the 3 Saturday games, they're really tough games to try to pick. And I don't think either one of us is overly excited about any of them, maybe with the exception of one. But the first game that we're going to talk about is the Thursday Nighter, where we see the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders in a nice little AFC West matchup. So, Sterling, I'll let you take us away on this one.
Yeah, this isn't a very inspiring Thursday night matchup, but we haven't had very many of those this year, so we can't really be surprised. Look at last week. It was, slated to be a dumpster fire, and it just turned into a raging dumpster fire instead.
And then the week before, it was the exact same thing.
Right? Exactly. Um, I mean, something to remember too is we are going to be seeing the Chargers without Justin Herbert.
Yep, out for the season.
I think they would be wise to just shut him down at this point, let him heal up for next year
Oh, they've
because
already announced he's out for the year.
have they? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. As of yesterday, I hadn't seen anything that they were still like, oh, maybe he'll be back.
Yeah.
And Keenan Allen is dealing with a bit of a heel injury as well, so we don't know if he's going to even be suiting up on Thursday. Odds are he will. He's been playing through a lot of nagging injuries this year, and he is the number one target for oh God, I keep forgetting his name just because we haven't seen him. The quarterback that's replacing Justin Herbert. But either way, we still expect him to be the number one receiver on that team. Whether or not it's still 10 targets a game and 5+ catches each game remains to be seen. And for that alone, I'm going to be shifting my look over to the Raiders, and I think the Raiders are probably going to be able to pull out a win here. They've been looking a little bit better, a little bit more of a unit and getting some things going, especially with the run game. So I think the Chargers are just a little too beat up right now. They're not going to be able to pull out a win. We haven't seen them be able to pull out a win when they were in some cases. So yeah, I think Raiders for the money line here for sure.
Yeah, so it's Easton Stick that
Yeah.
is the quarterback coming in, and it's gonna be an interesting game. Currently, just taking a look who is the favorite in this particular game. It is currently Vegas at -3,
Yeah.
and I struggle with this game because I am related to someone who is a lifelong Raiders fan, and
Hmm.
that being my old man, and I've mentioned him before, but I was talking to him after that embarrassing loss to the Vikings, where it was more reminiscent of a hockey score than it was
Yeah.
actually a football, where it was 3-0. Where the week before we saw a 6-0. I thought the Bears game versus the Vikings, where it was 12-7 or
Hmm.
12-10. I thought that was an embarrassing game to be a part of. Then the Chargers were like, hold my beer. And then the Vikings and Raiders were like, hold my shot glass.
Yeah.
And it's just been slowly getting worse and worse and worse. And it's been terrible to watch.
Now we just need a game to finish with only a safety at 2-0 score.
Yeah, honestly,
Yeah.
which could very well be this game. We could see the
I don't think
Raiders.
either I don't think either defense is good enough to
Well, the
hit a
Chargers do
safety.
have Khalil Mack, so like he's leading the league in
Yeah.
sacks, so it's one of those things where he just breaks containment. Aiden O'Connell, still a rookie quarterback, but the point that I was trying to get there is that the old man, he kind of said to me, he goes, you know what, it's pretty clear here at this moment that Aiden O'Connell is not the guy, so we need to
No.
shift our focus to who's going to be the guy, and right now, just trying to look at this, I'm probably gonna flip flop a lot over today and tomorrow just on this pick. I am gonna choose the Raiders here for the moment, just because Aiden O'Connell has at least started consistently over the last couple of weeks, and Easton Stick has not, and Brandon Staley I
Hmm.
have no faith in his ability to coach, and if he is somehow still with the Chargers after this year, they are just looking at Justin Herbert and they're saying, "We want you to truly be Philip Rivers 2.0, where we have all the potential, we have a lot of great stuff, but there's just that one thing every single year that we just can't get over the hump to get you to a championship, and they're just going to waste his career," which
Yeah,
is going to be really
yeah,
unfortunate.
I feel like Justin Herbert really needs, like, if Brandon Staley's still there, you got to request a trade. You got to get yourself out of there at that point.
You gotta
If,
give yourself an opportunity to go somewhere. And I
right.
I know your first thought is, hey, yeah, come join my Pittsburgh Steelers.
Damn right. Yeah, I was talking with Josh about that yesterday. I was like, yeah, I'd give up a first, a couple thirds, and maybe a player for that for sure.
You were gonna have to give up a ridiculous
Yeah.
amount. Like,
Oh, probably. That's why I don't think it would happen because there's no way Pittsburgh would give more than one first round pick away. We draft too well to give up too much of our future for one guy.
yeah, and it really is like that would probably have to be the biggest trade package in NFL history to go out and get Justin Herbert because the
Yeah.
Chargers, they're not just going to be like, okay, we'll take like two first round picks and maybe like a player, like blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like no, they're like you saw what Russell Wilson's trade package was. Add to that. Like that's essentially
Exactly.
what that's going to be.
Yeah.
Um, Now moving over to the first Saturday game of the week, starting at 11 a.m. in our triple header here, where we have the Vikings at 7-6 taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are without Joe Burrow, also at 7-6, and Cincinnati is minus 3.5 points. And you know what? Jake Browning has been good enough,
Yep.
and I'm just sitting back here at the moment, and I initially picked the Vikings, but the Vikings have been very, very bad. And I would love to pick the Bengals because you know for me that my AFC team is the Cincinnati Bengals due to Joe Burrow. I was a fan of him in college, I'm a fan
Hmm.
of him in the NFL, but it's one of those things, man, where I'm just kind of sitting back going like, this is a really weird game to pick because Jake Browning has been so good that it feels like it should be an automatic for the Bengals. But it's also one of those things where it kind of feels like the Josh Dobbs effect of where it's like he's been playing so good, sooner or later the wheels have to completely fall off and he has to have a game where he throws four interceptions and looks terrible. And
Yeah.
this Vikings team, they like to do a thing of where they blitz basically every single play and bring nothing but pressure against you, and it scares really dumb play callers. For instance, like Luke Getzey.
Hmm.
And you know, with Zach Taylor, he's kind of rode the hightails of what Joe Burrow has been the last couple of years. And before Joe Burrow, he definitely was one of those guys where it was like, okay, he's one of the worst head coaches in the league. So I'm picking the Bengals, but I'm gonna say the Vikings win on the money line, or not on the money line, on the spread, because
Yeah.
it's currently only minus 3.5. And but this is such a weird game to pick.
Yeah, this was a tough one for sure. And I mean, for me especially, I'm not a fan of the Bengals, and I'm kind of hoping we see the wheels come off for Jake Browning at some point here. And the Vikings have got to right this ship. Like I understand you lost Kirk Cousins, and then last week Justin Jefferson comes back for one series and takes a rib injury and he's out again. I'm not sure if that's long term or not. I haven't seen anything on it.
Yep, neither have I.
So either way, like they've got to find a way to start moving the ball again. Um, they got to address their run game in the offseason. They really do because there's nothing there. They need to get somebody.
Yeah.
Um, but I think ultimately, I think this will be the week where Josh Dobbs, settles down a little bit. It's in a weird time slot on a Saturday, which I think will be a little more awkward for the younger Jake Browning. And so
He's more used to it, still a little bit fresher out of school, so
he's not though. He's
he's
been
in his
around.
fourth year, I think, fourth
Yeah,
or fifth.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's been around for a few years now, just bench riding essentially
Yep.
everywhere. And so I think I'm hoping Jake Browning takes that back step this week, makes a few mistakes, and I am picking the Vikings to win.
Like I said, I initially had the Vikings, but this is just such a weird one where I'm probably going to flip-flop so much with it. So I
Me too.
understand that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
that's most of
moving.
the games this week on the Thursday and Saturday. It's like I don't know who to pick. Even
Yeah,
the good game that we're looking at later, like it's
good game.
good, potentially good game because of who is playing and how they've been playing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but now moving over to another game full of
Yep.
two teams that are both 7-6 here at the moment, where we have your Pittsburgh Steelers going into Indianapolis to take on the Colts, and I'll let you take the stage, but the Colts currently sitting at a -2.5 favorite.
Yeah. I mean, I said it when Kenny Pickett went down the week after. I don't have a lot of faith in Mitch Trubisky to be able to drive the ball and win us games. And you said it perfectly last week, where he is great at reading a defense as long as the defense shows exactly what they're going to do. If they are able to mask what they're doing, then he just falls apart in panic. And that's really what we've seen so far from him. And honestly expect more of the same. If you asked me 4 weeks ago, this would be hands down a Steelers win. But I'm looking at it now, and I mean, even the Colts looked bad against the Bengals last week, so it's hard to say. But I'm gonna have to go with the Colts on this one. It's on the road. The Steelers have not looked great. The defense seems to be having a little bit of turmoil and guys not pulling their weight, and we're seeing some division amongst the players. So I really do feel like this team it might be falling apart a little bit here to end the year. So I'm gonna go with the Colts, and I don't think the Steelers are gonna be able to cover that spread.
Yeah, I'm also gonna go with the Colts both on the money line and the spread. Um, but going back to what you're saying there, just with the team kind of the wheels falling off the bus, and
Hmm.
granted you weren't able to watch the game last week because you were at work,
Yeah,
which thank goodness for you because you probably would have, you know, found
I
a
would have
nice
been
shift.
mad that I lost out on making money to watch that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Which and you just saw players just give up in the game, like George Pickens. I remember a lot of Bears fans were really mad that we took Jaquan Brisker over George Pickens, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, we needed a wide receiver. We needed a wide receiver." I right now, I would not trade Jaquan Brisker for George Pickens at all. He's become
No.
such a problem for the Steelers, and like you can see it on plays where he's standing upright as he's just
Hmm.
like waiting in a line for something. And the play starts and he just starts slowly walking like he's Jay Cutler with the Miami Dolphins. Like he's giving off that type of attitude, and the defensive players they know that this year was going to be a defense-led year, like it is most years for the Steelers, or it has been of late. And I think they're just tired, man. Like this is a
Right.
defense that has been, and I said this at the beginning of the year. I said this is going to be a year where the Steelers defense is great for up to here, and then it's going to be we're tired, man. We just can't keep doing this, and some of the injuries are going to pile up, which they kind of have been. Some of the players are
Hmm.
just tired. Some of the younger guys are just like, well, what the hell? We've even heard in the locker room, like you brought this up, that there are players that are sitting back going like, well, you thinking you're going to come in and just immediately win because you're on the Steelers isn't just going to happen. You actually have to earn it.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I don't like seeing that the Steelers fall off because this is your team and you always want to be supportive of your team, but it's also kind of nice to see your buddy's team completely fall off when they've had a little bit of a dynasty growing over
Yeah.
the last 20 years. So, but it's so weird to watch the Steelers team because they could easily beat this Colts team. It's just Trubisky, he can't
Right. Can he
throw a
stay
football.
mistake free? That's just it. Can he not make a mistake? That's all he needs to do really for this team to win. But I just don't believe he's capable of that.
When Trubisky was with the Bears, there was a saying of it's not if Trubisky is going to make a mistake, it's when.
Yeah.
And there's times where Trubisky can look like a top 5 quarterback, and that's when the defense is showing exactly what they're going to do and it's going, "Okay, I'm comfortable right now. I've seen this before. Boom boom boom, in out bang."
Yeah.
And I was kind of shocked last week that I didn't see Trubisky and Robinson try to pair up a little bit more, obviously
Yeah,
with their time in Chicago and their comfort level. And when Trubisky was there, Allen Robinson was brought in as his number one. They built such a relationship together that it should have felt like those two guys are more connected with that.
right. It is possible because it was a short week, Sunday to Thursday. So maybe there just wasn't enough time to
Prepare.
reconnect that chemistry.
Yeah.
And so maybe from Thursday a full week to Saturday, maybe we'll see a bit of a change there, and we might see Allen Robinson involved a bit more, especially with George Pickens being such a diva lately. It's like, well, much like the defensive players, just because you're wearing the black and gold doesn't mean you automatically deserve to get the ball every play or that you're going to be successful every play. It's like, no, man, you got to come in here and earn this. And that is by running your routes, by doing what you're told, throwing the blocks you need to do, and giving it your all on every down, even when you're not the targeted guy. And if he's not going to do that, I definitely see the Steelers parting ways with him because this is the Steelers. Like, we're gonna draft another wide receiver this year. So if you don't want to smarten up, then they'll happily ship you out and bring somebody else in. We've seen it year in and year out with
And
Pittsburgh
with
Steelers.
how good this wide receiver class is, they can easily
Yep,
look at it and go, we don't care. We could get a first round guy in the second
exactly,
round and
exactly.
just move on from it. And I feel like they probably will, but we've droned enough on this game. Let's talk about the game that we actually think might be half decent on this Saturday, where we have the Broncos heading into Detroit to take on the Lions, where the Lions are currently favored by 4 points.
That's a little surprising. I did expect the Lions to be favored because it's at home and they have been good through most of this season. I thought that the spread would be a little bit closer though, just because the Broncos have been really good at keeping games close. And I feel like this is just a tale of two teams. The Lions started off hot, going 7-1, and then sort of dropped two of their last three here, whereas the Broncos started 1-5 and have since gone 6-1.
Yep,
And they are riding hot right now. The Broncos country is finally riding,
yep.
and
We get the memes now every time they beat a team. It's going, maybe Broncos country is actually riding.
right.
Um,
Whereas the last year and a half has been like Broncos country. Are you okay?
or
How's that
Broncos
ride?
country, you still riding?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, this is a game where if the Lions are able to get back to it, we could see a good competitive game because both these teams have been good at putting up points. The Broncos' defense has looked much better, which is concerning for the Lions because their defense has not been looking. And so that is where they're sort of on the downside of this matchup, in my opinion. And I am picking the Broncos to win this game just because they've been so hot. And Jared Goff, he's I don't know if they've just changed up their play calling. They're not doing as much, unique calls throughout the games in the last few weeks, and it's a little too copy
Cute.
paste. Yeah, well, it's a little too much copy paste, I think, right now, and teams are picking up on that because he's thrown more interceptions than he has touchdowns in the last over the last 3 weeks. So,
Granted, all of
hmm
those interceptions have come on the Bears.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's still not good.
Out
when
of the
when
10 interceptions that he's thrown this year, 5 of them have come against Chicago.
yeah,
Which,
but that's still not a great look at this point in the season when I mean you were in a foot race with these other teams for first place and for a bye and home field throughout the playoffs, and now you're sort of stumbling behind these other teams going, "Oh crap, can we catch up now?" And I don't think the Lions will be able to catch up at this point. The Niners just look too dominant, and with these stumbles they've had and how good the Broncos have been, and the fact that they bounced back after that loss, um, yeah, I got to take the Broncos in this one, even on the road.
yeah, I went into this one thinking to myself, okay, you know what? The Lions, they stumbled the last week with Chicago and they stumbled twice against them, but that's against a division rival where it's
Hmm.
very hot, very heated, and two teams are really going to go after each other. But this Broncos team, like at the beginning of the year, I often called them the Donkeys because that's what they were playing like. And I can't really call them that anymore because they haven't been playing bad. They've been playing good football. And when I saw that it was -4 for the Lions, I'm kind of sitting back going like, wow, that's shocking with
Mhm.
how bad the Lions defense has been with you know the offense, at least against the Bears, they've struggled. And you know what? Amon-Ra St. Brown dropped a couple of balls. I don't think he's going to do that again. I think he's just going to look at that and go, you know what? I had a piss poor week. Everyone else on the Lions offense, with the exception of Montgomery, didn't really have a great game. Even Montgomery, he just didn't. Like, it's not something that you were going to sit back and be like, we're really proud of our performance. It's like, no.
Yeah.
And I think the Lions will be better, but this Broncos team also, their defense under Vance Joseph has really improved. I have to agree with you. I think the Broncos win this game. And so, ergo, we have Broncos winning, and then we also have them on the spread as well, money line and
Yeah.
spread, which is really, really weird to talk about because it's like, man,
Yeah, 5 weeks ago, this would have been, much like
Lions.
mentioned on that previous game, it would have been hands down the other team we're picking.
Yeah,
And now we're like, I don't know. But like I said at the top of this, like we're sort of in the witching hour here in the NFL season where, teams that have been behind and not playing great are all of a sudden finding their stride and playing great football. And we see it year in and year out where some of these teams that are, in the hunt for that playoff spot squeak into the playoffs in a wild card and then have a decent run. They may not make it to the Super Bowl, but they open eyes and people start going, "Oh, okay, this might be a team next year." You know?
yeah, and just kind of going on that conversation with my Chicago Bears, that the entire year it's been Eberflus needs to be gone, 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 gone,
Hmm.
and with that win last week, the shift has kind of been, if the Bears win a few more games, it's going to be really, really difficult to justify firing Eberflus. And granted, I've said this year that I want Eberflus gone, but I would love him back as our defensive coordinator because him
Hmm.
running the defense is great. And I think the Bears at this point, if they keep him, and I think they should. Uh,
If he's win a few more games, if
yes, yes.
yeah,
If this team manages to get 2 more wins, I say, and we're at 7-10, I think the season.
yeah,
Yeah, seven
yeah,
and 7-10. At that point, I would be like, okay, going from a 3-win team to this and having to go through all of the adversity throughout the year. And another big thing is that Montez Sweat said after the game against the Lions, he said, you know what? Eberflus has done a great job at keeping this team together, and he used Washington as an example. He's like, I've been on 2 teams that have had their own struggles. One team that I'm currently on, everyone is staying together because of the coach, as opposed into Washington, where everything was just being derailed. No one cared. No one wanted to be there.
yeah.
And it's one of those things where you're like, God damn, like I don't like this revolving door of coaches and general managers and quarterbacks coming in. I'm willing to give Eberflus another chance. I'm not willing to give Luke Getzey another chance. Get his
No,
ass out of
yeah.
here. Give
Getsy's got
him
to go.
without a doubt. And I'm just sitting back and going like, man, like I don't want him anywhere near this organization. Get him out. Clint Kubiak, the 49ers passing game coordinator, is a guy that
Hmm.
I would very much consider coming to Chicago to be the new OC. But at that point, it's one of those things of going like, okay, we have another guy who doesn't have play calling experience. Let's see how this works. Um, but yeah, it's kind of weird because even when Eberflus does hire another defensive coordinator, I still think Eberflus should be the play caller on defense because
Yeah,
the dude knows how to run a fucking defense.
yeah. Really, you just need an offensive play caller though. That's the big thing, and you really should try to grab somebody that has that experience already, for sure.
Yes.
Somebody that can come in and pick up right away. and get on the same page with Justin Fields and DJ Moore and find a way to utilize these guys and use the rest of the team around to start winning more games.
My ideal coaching scenario would to be to have no actual head coach, but just have Matt Eberflus as the defensive coordinator and Kyle Shanahan as our offensive coordinator, and they just co-head coach, and it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean that's everybody's dream to have two head coaches leading your defense and your offense, but that 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 doesn't happen in the NFL that we see today. So
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, I mean, technically we have Vance Joseph, a
yeah,
former Broncos head coach, being the defensive coordinator for the Broncos for Sean Payton. So I
fair. And I
mean,
mean like if I get the OC that I'm one of the two that I'm hoping the Steelers go after for next year, then I'll be in the same position where I've got Mike Tomlin as a defensive head coach and Cliff Kingsbury as my offensive coordinator. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure I would want Cliff Kingsbury as my offensive coordinator, but
Why not? He didn't do well as a head coach, but he did well as a coordinator.
yeah, the only
So
reason that
he's not
I
my yeah, he's not my first pick anyway. I still really would like Byron Leftwich.
yeah, yeah, I'm just I have trust issues with Kingsbury that he's going to be able to continuously build a good game plan going
Hmm.
forward throughout the season. That's my only worry about him, but yeah, really, really weird stuff, but I feel that's
Yeah.
probably where we are going to end it off here today. Nice little short and sweet one coming at you here, but I would like to thank you all very much for hanging out with us here today. I'm Brendan for Sterling. Would like to say thank you all very much and peace.